All right, let's go to this conversation. As promised, the Department of Basic Education has released the National Diagnostic reports. Now, these look at the performance of candidates in the National Senior Certificate exams last year. So some of the candidates displaying weaknesses in poor spelling, reading, poor general knowledge of current affairs, among others. But let's discuss the significance of these reports with the Department of Education's Chief Education Specialist, Christo Thurston. Thank you so much, Christo, for your time. A lot of people will remind you for other things which shall not be said, but let's talk about these reports, the significance of having to release this, and how seriously you take them as a department.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I have to say that it's imperative that after each examination there must be a diagnostic analysis, and a diagnostic analysis of an examination is key. It's not merely there to achieve a certificate, because examinations, once you only drive certification, you lose the plot. The key is that you need to do an analysis that can serve as a supporting tool that feeds back into teaching and learning, because these are not isolated, but they're rather interconnected and interjected.
And it's quite interesting you say that, because just recently someone was saying that sometimes when we are not careful, we just read to cram and pass, and that's all we do. But some of the skills that we need to take, and in high school we sometimes do not as the learners. So now when you look at these particular diagnostic reports, who compiles them for the department, and what are some of the the key areas that you're looking at?
Well, the diagnostic reports are compiled. It's a holistic sector report. The National Department of Basic Education does publish it. However, it's various stakeholders that feed into this report. For example, the chief markers and the internal moderators from marking compile reports based on their observations from learners' responses during the writing and in the marking. So those are then sent to the National Department of Education, and various subject specialists then interrogate those reports and work on them. So, for example, the curriculum specialist, subject advisors, other reports from examinations, internal moderators based at the Department of Basic Education. These reports are then holistically compiled into 3 books that's currently on the Department of Basic Education's website. So it is quite an intense work that's gone into it. It's over 1,000 pages if you combine all these reports together.
And reading some of it so far, as you say, it's quite sizable, but one sees in some parts that there's a bit of a neglect when it comes to the teaching of grammar. This is critical. And I wonder then, in such an instances, is it a capacity issue for the teachers? Did the markers and everyone else who was doing the assessment find that, or is there something else at play here? Are the learners not comprehending?
What one must always keep in mind, language must be taught in context.
Yeah.
And also that language across the curriculum, because the Department of Basic Education believes that if you teach grammar in isolation, you're not going to achieve anything, because it's merely theoretical and the concepts are not based on context. For example, in your language question papers, you can never just assess something like tone out of context. You have to assess it within the context of a text that is provided.
So now then, if grammar is not being comprehended, for example, by the learners, or it looks like it's poor, do you then look at the teachers, or is it a problem that sits with the learners?
What we do is we do an analysis of learner responses, but at the same time, we also acknowledge that there's teacher training that's needed post an examination. And we realize that, okay, for example, if there's a misunderstanding of construction of certain sentences, there's always intervention that's support material that's provided to teachers, and the Department of Basic Education and the Provincial Department of Education then work together on holistic plans to provide teacher training programs that specifically focus on that. And I must say that it's a holistic sector approach.
And pardon me, there's something else I saw, and I'd like to just borrow from some of what the report said when I was going through it earlier on. For literature, for example, the report's saying that short stories and poetry must be studied in detail, and no teacher should expect learners to do this at home without these texts being taught and guidance given to the learners in the classroom. How is this even possible?
It's imperative that there must be independent reading as well, and then in the classroom the teacher also needs to, because the teacher is like a key resource. Like in any institution, it's key that your human resources need to understand what is happening in the system. For example, we introduced new literature, and if you notice the performance, increased performance in the home languages, learners responded quite well to the new literature in short stories and poetry that we introduced. But also our curriculum colleagues and curriculum specialists have gone on a compilation of study guides that support the system and supported teachers. So those resources are available to teachers on the news. So it's not a matter of just jumping, and the surprise was, but wow, there's new literature, but there's an improvement overall in the performance in the home languages. And it's specifically based on the support strategies that the Department of Basic Education has followed.
Children using slang, abbreviations, emojis, you know, one laughs at that because that's how they use the SMS lingo and social media lingo. But if it's finding its way into creative writing, what does it tell us then? Because that, at some point, they should be taught in school that that is not acceptable language for you to ever even put in any creative writing essay.
Yes, one must also keep in mind that it depends on the context and the type of text that you will be assessing. For example, if it's an SMS, you cannot have a string of just emojis in an SMS or another text, a Facebook message that you provide. It's just a string of emojis. There's no real language. So it's imperative that learners are guided on how to write these texts in full sentences, because the expectation is that candidates write in full sentences. And you will also notice that in our diagnostic report, we have addressed the issue of responding in full sentences. However, here and there, it is effective at times to use an emoji, and we cannot ignore that because we move into a world of artificial intelligence. You've also noticed that we've touched that in the introductory part. And many a teacher is so afraid of artificial intelligence and immediately ban it. But we need to realize that our world is moving towards artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, if effectively and ethically used, can be used as an effective teaching tool.
I come from an era where my teachers were very terrified of technology. I shall not say which era was that, but thank you so much, Christo, for coming in and really talking about these important reports, because these speak to, you know, some of what our children in schools really need, but quite an important conversation. So if you do have time, do read some of these diagnostic reports. They're quite interesting, especially when they tell the story of how some of the learners are comprehending what they're studying, what they're reading, what they're being tested on when it comes to exams. That was the Department of Education Chief Education Specialist, Christo Thurston. Thank you so much.